From Super League to Olympic distance to age group world records to Kona. Go longer with the right fuel at the right time with SFuels.
It's breakfast with Bob.
Hey, Tacho Man, everybody!
Outstanding.
Welcome to our 11th year of Breakfast with Bob from beautiful Huggles on the Rocks. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Master Spas, SFuels Go Longer, HOKA Let's Fly, Forum Smart Swim Goggles, Quintanaroo, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, and of course, our Challenge Athletes Foundation. Our host for this week, the president and CEO of Ironman. Give it up for Andrew Messick. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I haven't quite come to grips with the fact that we're about 40 minutes away from racking bikes on a Wednesday. Feels weird.
How challenging has this whole concept of 2 days of racing? Because, I mean, Thursday's a weekday. People have work. They've got school. They've got traffic. You and the Ironman and Island working together to make this happen. How tough has that been?
Well, it's a big lift. You know, when we're doing a whole bunch of things we've never done before.
Right.
And that's always a challenge. And we're trying to be sensitive to the needs of the community. We're trying to appreciate the needs of the businesses, of the hotels, of the airport, of all the people that need to move around town. And trying to, we spent the last year trying to craft plans that will enable people to do what they need to do and still allow our athletes to race and race safely.
And this is something that committed to for next year as well. So the Island is bought in on, we are doing 2 days of racing.
Yep, and so the qualifying cycle for the 2023 has already started.
Right.
And our anticipation is that we're going to have a full day just for women and a day just for men, and that'll be a first.
Also, you won't have some of the male age groups. It'll be all women on one day
Right.
and all men on the other day.
It'll be like 70.3 Worlds.
70.3 Worlds, okay.
So it'll be a women's day and a men's day.
Okay. And at some point, we're on a Thursday and a Saturday. Obviously, it'd be better to do Saturday and Sunday. Is that a goal down the line to try to do that?
Well,
is it feasible?
So it's an interesting question. The team here believes that it's impossible to race on Sunday because it affects access to church for so many people in the community, and that's not possible. But up until 2.5 years ago, we didn't think racing 2 days in Kona was going to be possible either.
Right.
And so I think we're going to have to see what works for the community, whether we can organizationally and operationally have back-to-back days, which is super difficult just from a staff management perspective.
Oh my God, crazy.
How do you rack bikes while a race is still taking place? I mean, there's a lot. You know, do you need 2 transitions? If so, where do you do it? Do you have to go back to the old airport? I mean, there's just a ton of really complicated organizational things that we're working through. But we're super pleased to be able to bring athletes. I mean, we had athletes qualify in 2019. We had athletes qualify in 2020. We had athletes qualify in 2021. We've had athletes here that qualified in 2022. And then we have all the legacy athletes.
I was going to say, there's like over 40 legacy athletes, right?
450.
450 legacy athletes.
450 legacy
God.
athletes. And so finding room for them in this race, it's just really hard to conceive how we can go back to 1 day.
So as an age group athlete yourself, how has that helped you as the leader of Ironman? Because you get it. You know, you've been out there sweating out in the sun.
Oh,
you know.
I spent years of my life unsuccessfully trying to qualify for this race.
I'll become president and then I can get in.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, the analogy I use is when I did Ironman Canada in 2005. That was my first full.
Okay.
I think there was 1,600 starters, and they had 110 Kona slots. I still wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough by a mile. But you fast forward 15 years, And the races aren't 15 or 1,600 athletes. They're 28, 29, 3,000.
Right.
And it's not 110 slots. In many cases, it's 40. And so for a typical age group athlete, it's gotten somewhere between 4 and 5 times harder to be able
to qualify.
to get here. And in many, many, many races around the world, you have to win your age group. And like, it makes for a really, really competitive field here. But there's all kinds of other people that are important to the Ironman community who just don't have they just don't have a shot.
Right.
And if we can getting back to 2 days racing opens the door to a whole tier of people who have a chance now. And I think that's just really important for us. And it provides more room for legacy athletes. It lets us do more with challenged athletes. It lets us like really be thoughtful about how we try to bring more women into the sport. And all of those things have been really complicated problems for us to try to solve when you've got 2,550 slots and every additional slot that you give to a pro comes at the expense of an age grouper, or every slot that you give to a woman comes at the expense of a man. Every slot that you give to a media athlete comes at the expense of somebody who's performance qualifying. And those were all really difficult decisions. And having a second day in 2023 gives us the ability to have much more flexibility. And we think that's going to be just really, really good for Ironman.
During COVID time, obviously, you were an event company. Events went away, obviously. So you reinvented, you created virtual events. What have you taken from, what were the positives that came out of that COVID experience and things that you created that you're still doing?
Well, I think that the biggest positive is it just reinforced to us how strong this Ironman community is worldwide, and how much people want to be here. They want to be at the races. They want to have opportunities to train with purpose, to be focused on some important event in the future that gives structure to their lives. And it was really tough when COVID happens. There's no races, and it's not just that there's no races. It's no one knows when the races are going to be back.
Exactly.
And so creating the whole virtual series was important for us to try to provide opportunities for people to be able to maintain a routine and to continue to have goals and structure in their lives. Because for a lot of us, whether we were working from home or our kids were going to school from home, it was like Groundhog Day. And so like having an event, even if it's just a virtual event, was really useful for the community.
So what do you look at as the biggest challenges the sport as a whole is facing going forward?
I think that, when we look at what we want Ironman to be, I think that there's a huge opportunity to continue to bring new people into the sport. And we are, a quarter of our athletes here are females. And it's a little bit lower than that globally.
Right.
And so I think on a global basis, 21% of our full distance athletes
But that's changed
women.
a ton, because it used to be, when we first got it was 10%, and it's inched up and gotten towards 20. While on the running side, like rock and roll, we had points where it was 60%, 65% women.
No, and we looked at this, that we own a bunch of running races too. We own cycling bases, we own mountain biking events. We're in the ultra trail space in a big way. That on a worldwide basis, 60% of our 5 and 10K athletes are female.
Yes.
And 50% of our half marathon athletes are female, and 40% of our marathon athletes are female. And it
goes down, and the longer the event goes.
It goes down, and what we take from that is we think it is beyond debate that women want to compete. They want to race. They want to engage in these challenging endurance events, and we see that on the running side all around the world. And we have to continue to find ways to bring people in and to invite people into the sport and make them feel welcome and give them opportunities to be able to do that. And it isn't just women. As we've looked to expand Ironman, we've brought and created athletes all around the world. I was at a breakfast this morning with the Filipino team.
Yes.
There's 43 Filipino athletes who qualified for this race.
Oh, yeah.
And that's 4 times more than we've ever had. And so continuing to build triathlon communities around the world and bring in people of color, of that those are all huge opportunities and really important initiatives for us, and it's important for the sport.
No question. And I look at, from a U.S. perspective, we've seen over the last decade, the numbers of events, the sprint, Olympic, those numbers a lot of those events went away, especially during COVID. The world in the U.S. is really Ironman 70.3, and Ironman is the majority, not the majority, but there's more of those events now than there are of the shorter events. But those shorter events are our welcome mat to our athletes. They're important to you. They're important, obviously, to me. How do we keep those events successful while the Ironman continues to thrive as well?
Well, I think it's really important that there continues to be a broad-based ecosystem of races around the world.
Right.
And that most people aren't going to have their first triathlon experience be a 70.3 and Ironman, and frankly, we encourage people not to do that because you learn so much on the way.
Yes.
And you're much more likely to have a safe and enjoyable experience if you start at shorter distance races and learn what it feels like to swim in open water and how to manage transition and like handle nutrition and all those things. So we want the shorter distance ecosystem to continue to succeed, and in various parts of the world we're much more active with our 5150 races.
Right.
And in Europe we have our team in Denmark created this 4:18:4
I remember
series
that. Yes.
with 400 meter swim, an 18K bike, and then a 4-kilometer run. And that's been super important and really instrumental in helping to develop Scandinavia as a place that's really a triathlon hotbed.
Do you see that coming to the U.S. at some point?
Maybe.
Okay.
What we don't want to do is we don't want to compete with the shorter distance races.
Right.
And so I think we'd like to help those races, but I don't think we necessarily want to be in the business
sort of help
of
the
organizing
existing events that are there. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of them that are hurting.
Yeah.
So for you, what happens on race day for yourself?
So I've always had a very sort of specific routine, and I watch the start of the race. I watch the first pros come in. I watch the first age groupers come in. I get on a motorcycle, and then I go out all the way out to Hawi and usually catch the lead women around Waikoloa. I catch the lead men, maybe 6 or 7 miles outside of Kauai High. I meet Jimmy Riccatello, the head official at the penalty box in Hawi. We talk about the race for a little bit. We watch the men go by. We watch the women go by. I get on the moto. I go back to town.
Right.
I get there about 20 minutes before the first cyclist comes in. And then I go out on the run course, and I'm on the run course until mile 18 of the finishers. Then I have to go to the finish line.
Right.
And so like I'm super nervous because
it's brand new.
It's brand new. The timing is all different. Usually the first finisher, the first male finisher finishes like around 2:30 in the afternoon. It's gonna be an hour later now.
Right.
Tomorrow, right? And so and so like all my timing is gonna be off.
It's gonna be really
and so it's
tough.
making me super nervous.
So last night at the Eco Mamai, we were talking about the pledge and how important it is for all of us who are involved on this island, who love this island, to understand that it's important for us to treat the island correctly, to treat the natives correctly. Talk a little bit about how important that is for the future of this event.
Well, look, we think that it's vital that we have 2 days of racing in the future.
Right.
And we have the support of the county and of the town to do it in 2023. But if it isn't going to happen in the future, it'll be because the community feels that the people that come here during Ironman Week don't respect them, the lives they lead, their culture, and that it's just a bunch of people from off island who come in, do whatever they want to do, treat the locals poorly, and then leave.
Okay.
And if we don't get 2 days, it'll be because of that.
And if we don't get 2 days, it's really difficult for this to. It's not sustainable.
Then we just have a whole bunch of really, really, really hard things that we need to grapple with. And so, like, I believe that everyone who comes here for Ironman, wants to be a part of this community, wants to pay respect to the island.
They do.
Wants to, experience this sort of amazing, uniquely Hawaiian thing that this week is. And I think we just all need to be on our A game, on realizing that we are guests in someone else's community.
Exactly.
And there's a bunch of people who live here and have lived here for a really, really long time. And their culture matters.
Yep.
And that we need to appreciate that. And I think overwhelmingly we do.
We do.
But we need to, I think it's one of those things we just need to remind ourselves that we're guests in someone's home whenever we're here.
Love it. Andrew, thank you for being so generous with your time.
It's a pleasure, but I have questions for you.
Yes.
I have two questions. The first question is, what did I do to make you put me between Craig Alexander and Jan Frodeno? Because that's just mean.
I wanted to give you, I wanted you to be a lead-in to Jan Frodeno and Lionel Sanders.
Oh.
How about that?
You're killing me.
I
And then
love
the
it.
second thing is, how do you think about a Thank God I'm Not Racing party when we have 2 days of racing?
Because we have all the women racing tomorrow.
Are you going to do the party twice?
No, we're doing the party Friday night when all the women can make it. Come on.
Outstanding.
Yeah, what do you think, Pancho? Yeah. I didn't go to school to eat my lunch. Come on now. We don't need a bunch of sweaty guys there tonight. Come on now.
All right, so it's ladies' night on Friday.
It's ladies' night on Friday. Free drinks. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mr. Andrew Messick.
Thanks.
Pancho Man, take us out.
It's breakfast with Bob.
And Pancho Man, everybody.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist.